I would actually say that unless you're in a regulated industry, business continuity is a very rare subject that's taken seriously and implemented seriously. Disaster recovery is a little bit different. Disaster recovery is something that we see, I would say anybody that we would call an enterprise or of that scale of operation will have a disaster recovery plan, and that's because the auditors know how to ask questions. Right? And business continuity is something that I have seen a very small number of organizations actually implement. I've seen organizations do a business impact analysis and never implement anything. But the banks and the regulated institutions take it all very seriously, because if they don't, the regulator will pull their license. And you know, the real question, when I'm talking to my salesmen about business continuity and the opportunities within organizations, it's who's impacting this, right? Is it a regulator? Is it internal audit? Is it external audit? Because and in a very small number of cases, customers will be impacting this. But if one of those four factors doesn't exist, nobody will do anything. It doesn't get above the attention threshold long enough. The questions you should be asking are, what are the critical business applications that I have to recover? How technically do I recover those? And the third question would be, where do I recover those? Now, the where I recover those is only relevant in the context of it's got to be far enough away that it's not going to be subject to the same threats as my production applications. And then the fourth question, and maybe the first question in many companies' cases, is what's it going to cost? Other than that, what else are you going to think about? There's always a big argument here in terms of cloud implementation. If you're talking about public cloud access, by definition, you're talking about public network access. Now, clearly there are security techniques and tools available that allow us to provide very, very high levels of security. But is it ever as secure as a dedicated pipe? I don't think so. So, as secure, I'm not sure. Very secure, definitely. I think it ought to be looked at as another enabling technology. But you're going to have to consider your production environment first. And if your production environment lends itself to being recovered on a cloud platform, there can be some cost savings achieved. But beyond that, really, it's the standard set of considerations. Well, you know, I haven't seen one yet, and the only cloud-based contracts I'm aware of are where someone is running their applications, their production applications, in a cloud environment, and they want to recover them to a similar cloud environment. And I would say that in those cases, it is obvious that you need to consider exactly the same issues you would recover if it was not a cloud environment. Service levels are recovery point objectives, recovery time objectives. The service levels associated with those are all very, very important. Network switching time, network bandwidth access, how the end users are going to access the application in a disaster situation. I mean, there is absolutely nothing new. The only difference here is we have a virtualized platform rather than a real platform. I don't see that it really has a lot of impact on the contract, except perhaps in the perceived value. It's always easier to sell something that you can touch and you can feel than it is to sell something that is just a concept. Now, I'm not saying that the cloud is just a concept. It runs on real hardware just like anything else. The problem is you don't know which hardware it's going to be until you actually come to use it. Legal departments, now that's an interesting one. I don't know of very many legal departments who actually even understand the reality of real hard disaster recovery, never mind virtualizing that platform. So I'm not too sure. That's actually the real issue. Who owns the data? The real question of data ownership is not who physically owns the data. You don't have physical data. Right? It's electrons on a disk somewhere that you don't even know where that is, even if it's in a hard environment. The real issue with data ownership is who has the ability to protect that data and to control that data. But if I've outsourced that, then who has the control now? But data ownership is really the key issue, and it's not just in the cloud environment, it's in any environment. Certainly here in Hong Kong, we've seen some very real-world examples of the implications of companies not protecting data in the way that's expected. I'm sure this will be a debate that goes on for a long, long time. What I'm seeing is that private cloud implementations are moving forward very fast. We started working with one customer in Hong Kong about 5 years ago and implemented some virtualization technologies that were sort of pre-cloud technologies. I certainly am seeing a lot of companies implementing private cloud architectures to support their less mission-critical applications. Clearly in the banks there are still some latency-sensitive applications and some high availability applications where so far they've chosen not to implement those on the cloud. But public cloud service offerings, I think that's what you're really referring to. Public cloud and hybrid cloud environments. I'm right now not seeing a big take-up. There are some companies who are playing around with it, both on the service offering side as well as on the buying side. But I'm not seeing this being a widespread, broad-based trend in the market other than coming out of the mouths of the marketing departments. But do I believe it will take off? Yeah, I think we'll start to see some applications migrating into that environment, particularly for test development. Those will probably be the first set of uses that come through. For production use, the question there is, will people really be buying infrastructure as a service, or will they be buying software as a service? Both using virtualization techniques, but what's going to be bought? And I think there's still a big question mark there.